The church bells toll slowly, their echo rolling through the quiet streets. A black hearse waits at the gates, its windows draped in heavy cloth. Inside rests Private Marcus Johnson, a 22-year-old soldier who gave his life overseas. Today is his funeral, but his mother, Evelyn Johnson, cannot reach him. She rushes across the street, black dress fluttering, clutching the folded obituary in her trembling hand. Her face is drawn with grief, every step weighted with loss. But just as she approaches the church entrance, two uniformed officers step in front of her. "Stop right there," one of them barks. His badge gleams in the morning sun. Evelyn blinks in disbelief. I'm his mother. I need to be inside." The officer, Sergeant Cole, crosses his arms, his tone dripping with disdain. "Not today, ma'am. This is a military service. We can't just let anyone walk in." Her voice cracks. "I'm not anyone. That's my son in that casket." People in the crowd murmur, heads turning. The absurdity of the moment spreads like wildfire. Yet Cole's expression doesn't soften. "Rules are rules. Without the right clearance, you're not stepping inside." A hush falls. Cameras from local news outlets swing toward the scene. Neighbors whisper in outrage. Evelyn's knees nearly buckle, but she steadies herself, refusing to collapse. "You can't keep a mother from her child," she whispers, her voice trembling yet firm. Cole smirks. "Watch me." The second officer shifts uncomfortably, but says nothing. Evelyn stands her ground. Tears streak down her face, but her grief transforms into fire. "This is my son's final farewell," she says, louder now, her words cutting through the silence. "He wore that uniform with pride. He fought for this country. And now you're telling me I don't belong at his side?" The crowd stirs. Some shake their heads in disbelief, others pull out phones to record. A veteran in the crowd shouts, "Let her in! She's his mother!" Applause ripples through the group, but Cole holds his hand up, barking, "Step back!" Evelyn's chest heaves. She feels Marcus's presence in her heart, urging her not to surrender. With her trembling hands, she pulls a worn photo from her purse, Marcus in fatigues, grinning, his arm around her shoulder. She holds it high for everyone to see. "This is proof enough. He called me Mom every day of his life. That's all the clearance I'll ever need." Gasps rise from the crowd. The second officer looks down, ashamed. But Cole sneers, doubling down. "Ma'am, this circus ends now. Move along or I'll have you escorted away." The words slice like knives. Escorted away, from her own son's funeral. Just then, the heavy doors of the church creak open. A chaplain in white robes steps out, confusion on his face. "What's going on out here?" he asks. Before Evelyn can answer, Cole cuts him off. "Just enforcing protocol. She doesn't have the proper clearance." The chaplain's brow furrows. "She's his mother. There is no protocol higher than that." But Cole plants his feet, his jaw rigid. "Not on my watch." The crowd roars in protest now. "Let her through!" voices chant. Someone live streams, the footage spreading online. Hashtags begin forming in real time. Had let her in, and justice for Marcus. Evelyn feels the weight of countless eyes, the cameras, the whispers, but more than anything, the weight of her son's sacrifice. She won't back down. "You can arrest me if you must," she says, voice steady as stone, "but you will not silence me, not today." And then, sirens. A motorcade pulls up at the edge of the block. Black SUVs roll into view, lights flashing but sirens muted. The crowd gasps, shifting in awe as agents step out, forming a perimeter. From the lead car emerges a tall figure in a dark suit, instantly recognizable. The President of the United States. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Cameras zoom in. Cole's smirk vanishes. The president strides forward, his expression solemn. He takes in the scene, the grieving mother, the defiant officer, the restless crowd. Without hesitation, he walks straight to Evelyn, gently taking her hand. "Mrs. Johnson," he says softly, "your place is inside. No one will deny you that." The crowd erupts, cheering. Cole's face drains of color, his authority shattered in an instant. Evelyn clutches the president's hand, her grief momentarily lifted by the force of justice arriving at her side. And with that, the doors to the church swing wide, not just for a mother, but for every truth silenced too long. The moment the president takes Evelyn's hand, the tension outside the church melts into thunderous applause. Reporters scramble for the best angles, phones record every step, and the chants of "let her in" roll like a wave. Evelyn's chest aches, not only with grief, but with a strange, overwhelming gratitude. Side by side with the president, she walks through the heavy wooden doors into the sanctuary. The air is thick with incense and sorrow. At the front of the aisle lies Marcus's casket, draped in the American flag, framed by lilies and roses. The sight knocks the breath from Evelyn's lungs. For an instant, she feels her knees give way, but the president's steady grip keeps her upright. Whispers ripple through the pews as mourners realize what has just happened outside. Soldiers in uniform, family, friends, and neighbors all rise to their feet, not out of protocol, but in a spontaneous show of respect for the mother who nearly wasn't allowed inside. The chaplain steps forward, his eyes shining. "Mrs. Johnson," he says warmly, "your son waits for you." Evelyn moves slowly down the aisle, every step echoing in her ears. The folded photo of Marcus is still in her hand, and she clutches it tightly against her chest. Behind her, the president follows quietly, keeping a respectful distance. Cameras remain at the door, but the sanctity of the room holds them back. At the front, Evelyn finally reaches the casket. Her trembling fingers trace the stars and stripes. She leans down, her tears falling onto the polished wood. "I'm here, baby," she whispers. "I made it." The congregation bows their heads, many wiping their own tears, but the peace is shattered when the doors swing open again. Sergeant Cole storms inside, his face flushed with rage. "This is outrageous," he snarls. "I was just doing my job and now you're turning this into a spectacle?" Gasps ripple through the mourners. The chaplain steps forward, blocking Cole's path. "Enough," he says firmly. "This is sacred ground. Your authority ends here." But Cole doesn't stop. His voice rises, echoing off the high ceilings. "If we let this chaos continue, there will be no order left. Rules exist for a reason." Evelyn lifts her head, tears streaking her cheeks, but her eyes are steady now. "Rules didn't keep my son alive on the battlefield. Rules didn't stop the bullet that took him from me, and no rule on this earth will keep a mother from her child." The entire sanctuary erupts in applause, the sound rolling like thunder. Cole freezes, realizing he has lost whatever sliver of support he thought he had. Even the second officer, still lingering by the door, looks away in shame. The president steps forward at last, his voice calm but commanding. "Sergeant, you have disgraced your badge. This woman has sacrificed more than most of us can imagine, and you thought it right to deny her dignity on the hardest day of her life?" Cole swallows hard, suddenly aware of the cameras still recording outside, of the hundreds of eyes now burning into him. For the first time, his arrogance falters. The president doesn't shout. He doesn't need to. "Leave this place. Now!" Cole's jaw tightens, but he knows there is no higher authority to hide behind. With the crowd's jeers following him, he turns on his heel and storms out, the doors slamming behind him. Silence settles over the sanctuary once more. Evelyn exhales, her shoulders trembling with release. The chaplain places a hand on her arm. "He can no longer touch this day. This is yours." The service begins, hymns filling the room, each note rising like a prayer. Evelyn sits in the front pew, Marcus's photo resting on her lap, the folded flag still under her fingertips. Jordan, Marcus's younger cousin, slips in beside her and takes her hand. When it is her turn to speak, Evelyn rises slowly and approaches the pulpit. Her heart races, but she feels Marcus with her. She looks out over the sea of faces, soldiers, neighbors, strangers who came to honor a fallen hero, and sitting quietly in the front row, the president himself. "My son," she begins, voice steady now, "was not just a soldier. He was a brother, a friend, a light in every room he entered. He fought for freedom. And today, I fight for him, by making sure no one can silence his memory or the families who carry these folded flags home." Tears run freely down cheeks in the pews. Some soldiers salute, others bow their heads. Evelyn pauses, her gaze falling once more on the flag-draped casket. "Marcus, I kept my promise. I'm here." The church erupts in a standing ovation, not loud or chaotic, but reverent, an outpouring of respect. Outside, the story spreads like wildfire. News outlets broadcast the confrontation, the president's intervention, and Evelyn's speech. Across the nation, families of fallen soldiers feel seen in a way they never have before. The hashtags grow into movements, and Evelyn Johnson becomes more than a grieving mother. She becomes a symbol. But for now, inside the quiet sanctuary, she is simply a mother at her son's side, finally allowed to say goodbye. When the final hymn ends and the casket is slowly carried out, the sun has shifted high above the church. Soldiers march with solemn precision, their white gloves holding the weight of both wood and memory. Evelyn follows close behind, her heart splitting with every step, yet something inside her feels stronger than before. Outside, the crowd has doubled. Word spread quickly, live streams, breaking news, hashtags. Hundreds of strangers now wait beyond the gates, holding flags and flowers, chanting Marcus's name. The air vibrates with solidarity. As Evelyn emerges, escorted by the chaplain and a pair of officers in dress blues, a wave of applause sweeps over the crowd. It's not the applause of celebration, but of respect. Strangers raise their phones high, capturing the image of a grieving mother who refused to be silenced. The president stands at the edge of the steps, having remained for the entire service. He waits until Evelyn is beside him and leans close. "The world saw what happened today," he murmurs, "and they're not going to forget." She nods, tears welling again, but this time from something more than grief. "For Marcus," she whispers. Down the steps, a reporter pushes forward. "Mrs. Johnson, Evelyn, what message do you want the nation to hear after what happened this morning?" The microphones thrust toward her feel like an ocean of pressure. Evelyn grips Marcus's photo tighter, her knuckles white. For a moment, she wonders if she has the strength to speak, but then, as though guided by her son's spirit, she finds her voice. "My son fought for a country he believed in," she begins, her voice strong despite the lump in her throat. "And today, I had to fight just to stand by his side. No mother, no widow, no family should ever face what I faced outside those doors." The crowd grows silent, leaning into her every word. Marcus gave his life wearing that uniform. If his sacrifice means anything, it means we must honor the families left behind. We must honor them with dignity, not humiliation. Cheers break out, a chant swelling from the edges. "Justice! Justice! Justice!" Evelyn steps back, trembling, but she knows she has just set something larger in motion. Across the city, newsrooms ignite. Clips of Sergeant Cole blocking her path run side by side with footage of the president taking her hand. Analysts call it a defining moment. Hashtags like #LetHerIn and #Justice for Marcus dominate every platform. Veterans organizations issue statements of solidarity within hours. By nightfall, candlelight vigils appear in front of courthouses, city halls, and town squares across the country. Strangers who never knew Marcus hold signs reading, "Honor our fallen," and "Mothers belong." Cole, meanwhile, becomes the face of disgrace. Internal Affairs confirms an investigation. His name trends online for all the wrong reasons. Former colleagues distance themselves, and his arrogance turns into isolation. But Evelyn doesn't celebrate his downfall. Her focus is elsewhere. That evening, back at her small home, Evelyn sits at her kitchen table, Marcus's folded flag beside her. Exhaustion weighs heavy on her, but so does the knowledge that millions of eyes are now looking to her for strength. Jordan, Marcus's cousin, sets down a mug of tea. "Auntie, you know they're going to ask you to speak again? At rallies, on television. Are you ready for that?" Evelyn stares at the steam rising from her cup. She never asked for this. She never wanted the spotlight. But the memory of Cole's sneer, the sound of the crowd demanding justice, and the thought of mothers yet to face what she did, it steels her resolve. "I wasn't ready today either," she says softly. "But Marcus gave me strength, and if I can stop this from happening to just one other family, then I'll keep speaking." Jordan nods, tears glistening in his eyes. "Then you won't be speaking alone. We'll be right there with you." The next morning, headlines blaze. Grieving mother denied funeral access sparks national outcry. President intervenes in shocking scene at Soldiers' Memorial. From sorrow to symbol, Evelyn Johnson's stand. Evelyn's phone buzzes nonstop. Calls from advocacy groups, veterans organizations, journalists, even members of Congress. One message stands out, delivered not through media channels, but in a letter slipped quietly under her door. "Mrs. Johnson, the families of fallen soldiers stand with you. We've waited years for someone brave enough to speak our pain. Please keep going. You are our voice." Evelyn presses the letter to her chest, tears streaming. She whispers into the quiet of her kitchen, "Marcus, your fight isn't over. It's only just begun." By the end of that day, plans for a march outside the state capitol are already forming. Veterans and civilians alike pledge to attend. News anchors call it the start of something historic. Evelyn never asked to be a leader, but the path has chosen her. And she knows deep down, this isn't just about Marcus anymore. This is about every soldier's family who has been silenced, overlooked, or denied. And as the sun sets, Evelyn stands at her window looking out at the city below. The chants from earlier still echo in her ears. Justice has taken its first step, and she is ready to carry it forward. The morning of the march dawns crisp and clear. Evelyn wakes to the sound of voices outside her window. Neighbors gathering, veterans in their pressed uniforms, mothers holding framed photographs of sons and daughters. The air hums with purpose, as though the city itself has risen with them. By the time she steps out her front door, the street is alive with movement. People carry handmade signs, "Honor the fallen," "Mothers belong," "Justice for families." Flags ripple in the morning breeze. Jordan walks beside her, steady and protective, while reporters trail just beyond the crowd, their cameras capturing every step. "Mrs. Johnson," a woman calls, clutching a folded flag of her own. Her eyes are wet, her voice trembling. "My husband died in Afghanistan. They treated me like I didn't matter. Thank you for speaking for all of us." Evelyn embraces her, feeling the woman's shoulders shake. "You matter," she whispers. "We all do. That's why we march today." As they approach the downtown square, the scale of the movement becomes clear. Thousands line the streets, chanting in unison. Church bells toll, blending with the cadence of boots striking pavement as veterans march in formation. Police barricades line the sidewalks, but this time the officers stand silent, their faces grim, perhaps wary of another scandal. At the front steps of the state capitol, a podium has been set up. The governor waits nervously, flanked by aides, clearly aware of the political storm brewing. Evelyn feels the weight of countless eyes on her as she climbs the steps, Marcus's photo pressed to her chest. The chants fade into silence. The microphone hums softly. For a heartbeat, Evelyn thinks of the church, of Cole's sneer, of the moment she thought she might never reach her son's casket. That memory fuels her now. "My name is Evelyn Johnson," she begins, her voice firm. "I am the mother of Private First Class Marcus Johnson. He gave his life for this country. And yet, when I tried to honor him, I was told I didn't belong." The crowd stirs, a low rumble of anger. Evelyn raises her hand, steadying them. "What happened to me is not just about one officer. It is about every family who has been dismissed, silenced, or pushed aside after giving everything. Today we say no more." Applause erupts, rolling like thunder. Flags wave high above the crowd. From the edge of the steps, veterans step forward, forming a line beside her. Some are elderly, their uniforms faded but their pride intact. Others are young, their eyes fierce with determination. One by one, they salute Evelyn, a gesture more powerful than words. The governor clears his throat, clearly unnerved by the size and passion of the demonstration. "Mrs. Johnson," he says, leaning toward the microphone, "on behalf of this state, I—" But the crowd drowns him out, chanting Evelyn's name. "Evelyn! Evelyn! Evelyn!" The governor steps back, realizing the moment does not belong to him. It belongs to her. Reporters scramble to broadcast the scene live. Across the nation, televisions fill with images of thousands chanting for justice, of a mother-turned-leader, of veterans saluting in solidarity. Commentators call it a movement born in grief, burning into history. Even the White House cannot ignore it. Statements flood social media, affirming support for Evelyn's cause. Members of Congress begin drafting legislation aimed at protecting the rights and dignity of military families. As the speeches end, the march continues through the city. Choirs join in, their voices soaring over the streets. "We shall overcome." Strangers link arms, young and old, black and white, military and civilian. Evelyn walks in the middle, her steps steady now. The pain is still there, raw, deep, unrelenting, but it has been transformed into something larger. Her son's name is not lost in silence. It is carried on the lips of thousands. At the end of the march, candles are lit, their flames glowing against the evening sky. Evelyn lifts hers high, the light reflecting in her tear-streaked eyes. Around her, thousands do the same, until the city looks like a sea of stars. "For Marcus," someone whispers. "For all of them," Evelyn replies. That night, news outlets replay the march on loop. Pundits declare Evelyn the face of a national reckoning. Veterans groups announce plans to lobby for what they call the Dignity Act, legislation to guarantee the rights of families at military funerals. Evelyn watches from her small living room, Jordan asleep on the couch beside her. She knows the fight ahead will be long. There will be resistance, pushback, attempts to silence her again. But after today, she also knows something else. She is not alone. Her voice has become many voices. Her grief has become a movement, and as she sets Marcus's folded flag on the mantel, she whispers into the quiet, "Your sacrifice lit the fire, my son. Now we'll carry it forward." The screen fades to black, but the chants echo on. Justice! 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 The footage of the march spreads like wildfire. By morning, nearly every major network is replaying the sight of Evelyn Johnson standing at the podium with thousands behind her. Commentators call it the moment a grieving mother became the voice of a nation. Evelyn wakes to find her phone buzzing non-stop. Texts, emails, missed calls, journalists, veterans groups, even politicians. One message stands out, an official invitation from the office of the Speaker of the House. "Mrs. Johnson," the letter reads, "your courage has moved the entire country. We invite you to testify before Congress as we consider legislation to protect and honor military families at funerals." Her hands tremble as she reads it aloud. Jordan looks at her with wide eyes. "Auntie, they're listening. They want you in Washington." Evelyn sets the letter down beside Marcus's folded flag. The idea of speaking in front of Congress terrifies her, but she knows this is no longer about fear. "Then that's where I'll go," she whispers. Days later, Evelyn steps into the marble halls of the Capitol. The building feels imposing but also alive with possibility. Her heels click softly against the floor as aides lead her into a committee room filled with senators, representatives, cameras, and press. The chairman nods respectfully as she takes her seat. "Mrs. Johnson, thank you for joining us. Please share your story." Evelyn inhales deeply. She holds Marcus's photo up for all to see. "My son gave his life for this country. He wore the uniform with pride, and yet, on the day I tried to honor him, I was blocked, humiliated, by someone who should have protected me." Gasps ripple through the room. Some lawmakers shift uncomfortably in their chairs. "No family should endure what I endured. No mother should have to beg to stand by her child's coffin. That is why I am here, not just for Marcus, but for every soldier who never came home and every family still fighting to be seen." The silence that follows is heavy. Then, applause breaks out. Not from the lawmakers, who must remain formal, but from the veterans and families filling the gallery seats. Reporters scribble furiously, cameras flash. Senator Whitaker, a decorated veteran himself, leans forward. "Mrs. Johnson, your words honor every service member. I believe it's time we pass what we are calling the Dignity Act, a bill to guarantee families the right to be present at funerals, to protect them from discrimination, and to hold accountable any official who denies them that right." The room murmurs in agreement. Evelyn feels her throat tighten, but she nods. "Do it," she says simply. Over the next weeks, the bill moves through committees. News outlets broadcast every step. Evelyn becomes a familiar face, giving interviews, meeting with lawmakers, even appearing on late-night shows where hosts praise her courage. But not everyone supports the bill. Critics argue it's unnecessary, that isolated incidents don't require federal law. Evelyn faces harsh questions, veiled attacks, even hate mail. One night, exhausted, she sits in her hotel room staring at the Capitol dome glowing in the distance. Doubt creeps in. Maybe the fight is too big. Maybe she isn't strong enough. Then she sees the letters piled on her nightstand. Handwritten notes from mothers, widows, children. One reads, "My brother died overseas. They treated us like we didn't matter. Please, keep going. You are our hope." Evelyn wipes her tears. She knows giving up isn't an option. When the day of the vote arrives, the gallery is packed with veterans and families. Evelyn sits among them, clutching Marcus's photo. The speaker calls the chamber to order. One by one, votes are cast. On the big screen, the tally climbs. Yes, yes, yes. Opposition shrinks as momentum builds. Finally, the numbers are clear. The bill passes with a wide margin. The gallery erupts in cheers. Some lawmakers rise to applaud. Evelyn closes her eyes, whispering, "We did it, Marcus, we did it!" Reporters rush to capture the moment. Headlines will soon blaze. Congress passes Dignity Act after mother's brave testimony. That evening, Evelyn stands on the steps of the Capitol as the sun sets. Jordan places a hand on her shoulder. Around them, families cheer and wave flags, their voices echoing through the streets. For the first time since Marcus's death, Evelyn feels not just grief, but peace. His sacrifice has sparked a movement that will outlive them both. She gazes at the glowing dome above and whispers into the twilight, "Justice has been served." The invitation arrives in a crisp white envelope stamped with the presidential seal. Evelyn stares at it for a long moment before carefully breaking the seal. The words inside almost don't feel real. "You are cordially invited to the White House for the signing of the Dignity Act. Your presence is requested by the President of the United States." Her hands shake as she reads it aloud. Jordan's face lights up with a grin. "Auntie, this is history. You're going to the White House." On the day of the ceremony, Washington is buzzing. Outside the White House gates, reporters crowd behind barricades, cameras poised to capture the moment. Inside, the East Room gleams beneath chandeliers, filled with veterans, Gold Star families, and lawmakers. Evelyn walks in slowly, clutching Marcus's folded flag to her chest. She wears a simple black dress, dignified yet understated. The crowd rises to its feet as she enters. Some salute, others simply bow their heads. She feels the weight of their respect settle around her like armor. At the podium, the president greets her warmly. "Mrs. Johnson," he says, "your strength has moved this nation. Today we make sure that no family will ever again be denied the dignity you were denied." Evelyn nods, unable to speak for a moment as emotion wells in her throat. The ceremony begins. Veterans line the front rows, their medals catching the light. Families clutch photographs of lost loved ones. The president speaks of sacrifice, honor, and resilience. He tells the story of Evelyn and Marcus, of the day she was turned away, of the march that followed, and of the bill born from her courage. "Today," the president says firmly, "we sign into law the promise that every family who gives their loved one to this country will be treated with respect and dignity. Forever." The room bursts into applause. Evelyn's eyes blur with tears as she presses the flag tighter to her chest. An aide places the bill on the desk. Cameras zoom in as the president uncaps his pen. With a steady hand, he signs his name. Flashbulbs explode like fireworks. The Dignity Act is now law. The president turns, holding the pen aloft, then extends it to Evelyn. She accepts it with trembling hands. "This belongs to you," he says. The crowd rises again, clapping and cheering. Some chant her name, "Evelyn, Evelyn," their voices filling the ornate room. After the ceremony, reporters swarm her with questions. "Mrs. Johnson, how do you feel?" Evelyn pauses, gathering herself. "I feel my son here with me," she says softly, "and I feel hope that no mother, no widow, no child will ever be silenced again." The statement goes viral within minutes. Social media floods with hashtags. #DignityAct, #JusticeForFamilies, #EvelynJohnson. Across the nation, people who never knew Marcus speak his name, honoring his sacrifice. Later that evening, Evelyn is invited into the Oval Office. The room feels smaller than she imagined, but its history hums in the air. The president sits across from her, his tone personal now. "You've reminded us what leadership really looks like," he tells her. "It doesn't come from power, it comes from courage." Evelyn lowers her gaze, humbled. "I only did what any mother would do," she replies. "No," the president corrects gently. "You did what few could. You turned grief into change." As she leaves the White House that night, the city glows with lights. Crowds still linger outside the gates, cheering as she steps into the evening air. Evelyn lifts the folded flag high and the cheers grow louder. For a brief moment, she feels Marcus beside her. She imagines him in uniform, smiling with pride, saluting her. The thought steadies her heart. This journey began with pain, but it ends with transformation. Evelyn is no longer just a widow. She is a symbol, a mother who carried the voice of thousands into the halls of power and refused to be silenced. Back home, she places the signed pen beside Marcus's flag on the mantle. The room is quiet, peaceful. She whispers into the stillness, "Your fight is finished, son. Justice has been served." And for the first time in a long time, Evelyn smiles. The weeks following the White House signing are unlike anything Evelyn has ever experienced. Overnight, she transforms from a grieving mother into a national figure. News outlets clamor for interviews. Magazines put her face on their covers, and talk shows introduce her as the woman who brought dignity back to America's heroes. But what matters most to Evelyn isn't the cameras, it's seeing the law in action. One Sunday, she attends a funeral service for a young Marine in Baltimore. She sits quietly in the back pew, unnoticed at first. The church is filled with mourners, but this time, things are different. Police officers stand respectfully at the doors, ensuring no family member is turned away. Veterans form an honor guard, their uniforms immaculate. As the mother of the fallen Marine approaches the casket, Evelyn sees something she didn't have on that painful day: protection, respect, and peace. Tears stream down her face, but they are not tears of grief. They are tears of vindication. The Dignity Act is working. Word spreads across the nation. In cities and towns, families of fallen soldiers step forward with renewed confidence. No longer do they fear being silenced or pushed aside. At cemeteries, in churches, at memorials, Evelyn's presence is felt, even when she isn't there. Social media fills with photos tagged #DignityAct. Families standing proudly at funerals, holding the hands of loved ones, knowing their rights are protected. Each post carries the same message: because of Evelyn Johnson, we were heard. Of course, not everyone is pleased. Some critics still grumble, calling the law unnecessary bureaucracy, but their voices are drowned out by the overwhelming support pouring in from soldiers, veterans, and ordinary citizens. A prominent general appears on national television and silences the debate. "This law doesn't just honor the dead," he says firmly. "It honors the living, those who must carry on." Evelyn Johnson reminded us that dignity isn't optional. It's the bare minimum. The clip goes viral. Back home, Evelyn returns to her church for the first time since the law passed. The congregation greets her with cheers and applause. The pastor calls her to the front, where she stands with Marcus's folded flag in her arms. "Evelyn Johnson, he says, you turned heartbreak into history. You showed us that one voice can move mountains. Today you remind us all that justice belongs to the persistent." The church erupts in amens and applause. Evelyn smiles through her tears. But fame comes with pressure. Invitations pour in daily. Keynote speeches, advocacy panels, charity galas. People call her America's mother. She appreciates the love, but she never lets herself forget why it all began. At night, in the quiet of her living room, she still talks to Marcus. "This isn't about me," she whispers. "It's about you, and every soldier like you." One evening, she receives a phone call from a Pentagon official. The Army wishes to honor her with a Medal of Civilian Distinction, the highest award given to those who serve without wearing a uniform. At the ceremony, generals stand shoulder to shoulder with lawmakers. The medal is placed around her neck as a voice announces, "For courage, perseverance, and unwavering advocacy, we honor Evelyn Johnson." The applause feels endless. Reporters later note that even the toughest generals wiped away tears. But Evelyn doesn't stop there. With the momentum of the Dignity Act, she launches the Marcus Johnson Foundation, dedicated to supporting military widows and children. The foundation provides scholarships, counseling, and legal aid to families left behind. Grief should not be a life sentence, Evelyn tells the press at the launch. It should be the start of healing. The foundation becomes a beacon of hope, spreading far beyond Washington. Families across the country write to her, saying her foundation gave them the strength to move forward. One night, as she scrolls through the foundation's inbox, she pauses on a message from a teenage boy. "My dad died overseas. I wanted to give up, but when I saw what you did, I knew I had to keep going. I'm applying for your scholarship because I want to be an engineer like he dreamed. Thank you for not forgetting us." Evelyn presses her hand to her chest, overwhelmed. This, she realizes, is Marcus's legacy. Not just a law, not just a movement, but a living, breathing future carried forward by those left behind. Standing by her window, Evelyn looks out at the city lights. For the first time, she feels the heaviness of grief lift just enough for joy to take its place. Marcus's sacrifice, her struggle, the nation's response, they all converged into something unshakable. She whispers softly into the night, "Justice isn't just served, my son. It's alive. It's working. And it will outlast us all." Months pass, but Evelyn's story refuses to fade. Instead of slowing down, the wave grows stronger. News networks in Europe, Asia, and Africa begin covering her journey. Newspapers in London headline, "The Widow Who Changed America." In Paris, magazines call her La Voix de la Dignité, the voice of dignity. Soon, invitations arrive from beyond U.S. borders. Governments, universities, and international organizations want Evelyn to speak about justice, dignity, and perseverance. At first she hesitates. She never asked to be a symbol. But Marcus's folded flag rests on her mantle, and every time she looks at it, she hears his voice. Keep going. She agrees. Her first trip is to Geneva, Switzerland, to speak at the United Nations. The assembly hall is immense, filled with delegates from every corner of the globe. Evelyn walks to the podium, her heart pounding, clutching Marcus's flag once more. She begins softly, her voice carrying through the microphones. I was just a mother, a widow, a woman who wanted to bury her husband in peace, but I was stopped. Not by war, not by distance, but by prejudice. And in that moment I realized something. Dignity denied to one family is dignity denied to us all. The hall falls silent. Even seasoned diplomats lean forward. Cameras beam her image across continents. She continues, stronger now. We cannot let grief be met with cruelty. We cannot let sacrifice be forgotten. Dignity must not be an American promise alone. It must be a human one. By the time she finishes, the entire chamber rises in a standing ovation. For several seconds, applause echoes like thunder against the walls. From Geneva, her journey continues. In London, she addresses Parliament. In Nairobi, she speaks at a youth conference where students chant her name. In Tokyo, a journalist tells her, "You have become a mother to us all." Wherever she goes, she hears the same thing. Families who lost loved ones to conflict feel less alone because of her fight. Her story, born from sorrow, now carries hope across oceans. Back home, Americans watch with pride. News anchors smile as they show footage of Evelyn standing beneath international flags, representing not only herself, but millions of unheard voices. Social media trends with hashtags like #GlobalDignity and #EvelynSpeaksForUs. Jordan, her nephew, beams every time he sees her on TV. "Auntie, Uncle Marcus must be smiling right now," he says. Evelyn hugs him tightly. "I hope so. I want the world to remember him and all the others." But with fame comes scrutiny. Not everyone welcomes her influence. Some critics accuse her of seeking attention. Others call her naive for thinking dignity can be universal. Evelyn faces it calmly. In an interview, when asked about the backlash, she answers, "If asking for basic respect makes me controversial, then I will gladly be controversial, because dignity isn't a favor, it's a right." The clip spreads worldwide, silencing many detractors. Her journey reaches its peak when she is invited to speak at the Nobel Peace Forum in Oslo. The audience includes leaders, activists, and Nobel laureates. She stands on the stage, simple as always. No glamour, no theatrics, just her steady voice. Justice, she says, is not about laws alone. It's about how we treat one another when the world isn't watching. My husband gave his life for freedom. My fight is to ensure his sacrifice, and all sacrifices are honored with humanity. When she finishes, tears streak down faces across the hall. The ovation lasts nearly 5 minutes. That night, Evelyn sits quietly in her hotel room. Outside, snow falls gently over Oslo. She sets Marcus's flag on the bedside table and whispers, "We're being heard, love. Not just here, everywhere." For the first time, she feels that her grief has transformed into something larger than herself. Marcus's legacy is no longer bound by borders. His story, their story, has become a call for dignity across the world. Back in the US, the foundation she started expands, opening branches in allied countries. Scholarships for military children now reach across continents. The message is clear: dignity knows no borders, and wherever she goes, people rise when she enters. Not because she is powerful, but because she embodies something undeniable: resilience, courage, and the belief that even one voice, if persistent enough, can move nations. Evelyn Johnson is no longer just America's mother. She has become the world's. By the time Evelyn returns from Oslo, the media in the United States is buzzing. Commentators debate not if she should be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, but when. The idea seems surreal to her. She never sought recognition. Her only goal was to honor Marcus and protect families like hers. Yet the momentum behind her movement is undeniable. One morning, as she sips coffee at her kitchen table, her phone rings. The voice on the other end is calm, formal. "Mrs. Johnson," the caller says, "on behalf of the Nobel Committee, it is my honor to inform you that you have been officially nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize." Evelyn nearly drops her mug. Her hands tremble as the words sink in. She whispers, I I don't know what to say. Say nothing now, the caller replies. The world will speak for you. The news spreads like wildfire. Headlines scream, From widow to world icon, Evelyn Johnson nominated for Nobel Peace Prize. Television networks replay her speeches, highlighting her calm defiance in the face of injustice. Newspapers recount the day she was blocked at Marcus's funeral, contrasting it with the global platform she now commands. Support pours in from every direction. Veterans groups, faith leaders, human rights organizations. Children send her letters with crayon drawings of flags and doves. Families she has helped through her foundation flood her with messages of love. Jordan, her nephew, bursts into tears when he hears the news. Auntie, Uncle Marcus would be so proud. Evelyn holds him tightly, her own tears flowing. This is for him, Jordan, always for him. Still, Evelyn keeps her humility. When reporters swarm her doorstep, she steps outside with quiet dignity. I am deeply humbled by this nomination, she tells them, but this isn't about me. It's about every soldier who gave their life, every widow who stood alone, every child who grew up without a parent because of war. This is their story. I'm only carrying it. Her words resonate, silencing critics and inspiring millions. As the nomination gains momentum, Evelyn receives invitations to speak at universities, think tanks, and even the White House again. The president personally congratulates her, telling her, "You've done more to unite this nation than many of us in politics ever could." International leaders echo the sentiment. In Germany, a chancellor calls her a bridge of hope. In South Africa, an activist compares her to global icons of justice. The world has found in Evelyn not just a symbol of dignity, but a leader for a new era of compassion. Yet Evelyn never lets the grandeur consume her. She continues visiting families, quietly sitting with widows in their living rooms, offering them comfort and resources. She still cooks for church events, still walks the same streets of her neighborhood. Fame hasn't changed her. It has simply given her a louder microphone. One evening, at a foundation fundraiser, a reporter asks her, "Do you think you'll win the Nobel?" Evelyn pauses, then smiles softly. Winning doesn't matter. What matters is that the world is listening. For the first time in a long time, they're listening. As autumn approaches, the Nobel ceremony looms closer. Evelyn travels to Sweden once more, accompanied by Jordan and a small group of veterans who stood by her side since the beginning. The atmosphere is electric. Walking through the airport, Evelyn is greeted not by silence or hostility, but by cheers and applause. Strangers stop her, thanking her for her courage. Children wave miniature flags. She realizes she has become more than just Evelyn Johnson. She has become a living reminder that grief, when paired with courage, can reshape the world. On the night before the award announcement, Evelyn sits in her hotel room, Marcus's folded flag on her lap. She whispers into the quiet, "We made it here, love. Not because I wanted it, but because you deserved it. Because they all deserved it." She closes her eyes, tears falling silently, and feels for the first time that Marcus is truly with her, not just in memory, but in the impact his sacrifice has left on the world. When morning comes, the streets of Oslo are lined with cameras, reporters, and crowds waiting for the announcement. Evelyn stands tall, her heart pounding but her spirit steady. Whether she wins or not, she knows the truth. She has already secured something greater than any prize. She has secured dignity. For Marcus, for families like hers, and for generations yet to come. The hall in Oslo is draped in white and gold, cameras flashing like stars across the room. Delegates, laureates, and journalists sit in hushed anticipation as the chairman of the Nobel Committee walks slowly to the podium. Evelyn sits near the front, Jordan on one side, two veterans on the other. In her lap, as always, rests Marcus's folded flag. She tells herself she isn't nervous, but her heartbeat betrays her. This moment is bigger than her, bigger than her grief. It belongs to every widow, every soldier, every family silenced by injustice. The chairman clears his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he begins, his voice calm but commanding. "This year, the Nobel Peace Prize honors an individual whose courage, humility, and relentless fight for dignity have inspired millions around the globe." Gasps ripple through the audience. Evelyn's eyes lower, gripping the flag tighter. "The Nobel Peace Prize for this year," the chairman continues, "is awarded to Evelyn Johnson." The hall erupts. Applause thunderclaps against the marble walls, echoing for what feels like forever. Cameras zoom in on Evelyn's stunned face, tears streaming freely as Jordan throws his arms around her. Veterans beside her shout, "Yes! Yes!" For a brief moment, she can't move. It's as though Marcus himself is holding her shoulders, steadying her. Then, with trembling legs, she rises and makes her way toward the stage. The ovation doesn't stop as Evelyn reaches the podium. She sets Marcus's flag gently in front of her and takes a long breath. When she finally speaks, her voice is soft but carries weight. "I stand here today, not as Evelyn Johnson, but as a wife who loved her husband, as a widow who refused to be silenced, and as a voice for every family denied dignity." She pauses, scanning the audience, her gaze locking on faces from every race, every nation. "This prize is not mine. It belongs to Marcus. It belongs to every soldier who never came home, to every child who grew up too soon, to every widow who buried her love and faced the world alone." This is their recognition. The crowd listens in silence, many wiping tears. "I was blocked from my husband's funeral once," she continues, voice tightening, "but today, nothing can block his legacy. Because dignity is louder than hate, and justice is stronger than prejudice." As she finishes, the hall rises again. The applause is not just celebratory. It feels like a promise, a vow to honor what she has stood for. Later, outside the Nobel Hall, snow falls gently. Evelyn walks with Jordan, who can't stop smiling. "Auntie, you did it. Uncle Marcus did it." She nods, clutching the medal in one hand, the flag in the other. "We all did it," she whispers. Around them, reporters shout questions, flashes burst, but Evelyn doesn't care. She knows the prize is more than an honor. It is a megaphone, amplifying her mission to the world. Back in the US, celebrations erupt. Crowds gather in front of the White House and at military bases across the nation, holding candles and chanting her name. Television anchors declare her victory, a moment of national healing. Veterans post photos online with captions like, "Finally, someone spoke for us." The president calls personally, his voice warm. "Evelyn, today you didn't just win a prize. You reminded the world what America can stand for." Evelyn thanks him, but inside, she thinks only of Marcus. That evening, alone in her hotel room, she places the Nobel medal beside Marcus's flag. She touches both gently, tears falling again, but this time, they are not tears of grief. "They hurt us, love," she whispers into the silence. "From Washington to Oslo, from small towns to great cities. They hurt us." For the first time in years, she feels peace, not because the pain is gone, but because she has turned it into something unshakable. The next morning, as headlines flood the world, Evelyn Johnson, Nobel laureate, she knows the fight is far from over. Dignity must still be defended. Families still need protection. But now she has the world's attention, and she intends to use it. With the medal around her neck and Marcus's flag in her arms, Evelyn Johnson steps into history. Not as a victim, but as a symbol of resilience, courage, and justice. And for everyone who once doubted her, the truth is undeniable. Justice has been served. When Evelyn's plane touches down in Washington, D.C., the airport is already overflowing. Veterans in uniform stand shoulder to shoulder with students, mothers, and church leaders. They wave flags, hold handmade signs, and chant her name. Reporters crowd the barriers, cameras clicking in rapid succession. As she steps off the plane with Jordan by her side, the noise swells. People cheer as though she has returned victorious from a war. In a way, she has. Evelyn lifts Marcus's folded flag high above her head, and the crowd roars. "Welcome home, Evelyn!" someone shouts. "We're with you!" It feels surreal. Just months ago, she was blocked from mourning her husband. Now, the entire nation seems to be mourning and healing with her. The White House hosts a special reception in her honor. The president greets her personally at the entrance. "You've given America something it desperately needed," he tells her. "Hope." Inside, senators and generals approach, shaking her hand, some sheepishly admitting they hadn't supported her cause before. Evelyn smiles politely, but she doesn't forget. She has learned that real change comes not from ceremonies, but from laws, from actions that touch everyday families. That night, she addresses the gathering. Her voice is steady, her words deliberate. The Nobel Prize is not an ending, it is a beginning. Families are still suffering. Widows are still waiting for justice. Children are still growing up without protection. We cannot stop here. The room erupts in applause. The president himself rises, nodding firmly. In that moment, Evelyn knows her mission has crossed a threshold. What began as grief has become a national movement. In the weeks that follow, momentum builds. Crowds gather in front of the Capitol demanding passage of the Dignity Act, the legislation Evelyn and her allies drafted months earlier. The bill would guarantee housing, health care, and education benefits for military families left behind. For the first time, lawmakers feel the pressure. Phones in congressional offices ring non-stop. Emails flood in. Polls show overwhelming public support. Evelyn testifies before Congress again, this time not as a grieving widow, but as a Nobel laureate. Her presence commands respect. Even her fiercest opponents listen in silence. America cannot ask its soldiers to sacrifice, she declares, and then abandon their families when the ultimate price is paid. To honor the fallen, we must protect the living. Her words ripple across the country, broadcast on every network, shared on every platform. Meanwhile, communities take action on their own. Churches set up scholarships in Marcus's name. Schools teach about Evelyn's journey in civics classes. In small towns, widows once ignored now find neighbors delivering meals and offering rides. Evelyn's story has awakened something deep, a recognition that dignity is not a privilege but a right. Jordan, inspired by his aunt's strength, announces he will study law. "I want to fight for families like ours," he tells her one evening as they sit on the porch. Evelyn hugs him, her voice catching. "Marcus would be proud, Jordan. So proud." But not everyone is pleased. The same forces that once tried to silence her begin launching attacks. Talk show pundits accuse her of politicizing grief. Anonymous threats arrive at her foundation's mailbox. Online trolls flood her speeches with insults. Evelyn, however, is unshaken. "If they are loud," she tells her team, "we will be louder. If they spread hate, we will spread dignity." Her calm defiance only strengthens her supporters. Veterans march in rallies wearing shirts that read, "Justice for Marcus, justice for all." Students organize walkouts. Celebrities use their platforms to amplify her message. The country is no longer simply watching Evelyn, it is moving with her. One night, as she prepares for another speech, Evelyn looks into the mirror. She barely recognizes the woman staring back, not because she feels distant from herself, but because she now carries millions of voices on her shoulders. Marcus once called her the quiet storm. Now, she realizes, the storm has become a movement. She whispers to her reflection, "This isn't just survival anymore. This is history." By early spring, the Senate schedules a vote on the Dignity Act. Crowds flood the National Mall, banners stretching high into the sky, "For our soldiers' families." Evelyn stands among them, not above them. She speaks from a small stage, her voice echoing through the crowd. "Tomorrow they will vote," she says. "But today, we already know the truth. We are not invisible, we are not disposable, and we will not be silenced ever again." The crowd explodes in cheers, their voices rising like thunder against the marble dome of the Capitol. As the sun sets, Evelyn feels Marcus's presence more strongly than ever. The folded flag rests against her chest, and for the first time, she believes the promise she made to him is within reach. The Senate chamber is unusually tense. Every seat is filled, reporters line the gallery, and outside, the sound of thousands chanting echoes faintly through the walls. The Dignity Act, months in the making, years in the waiting, has finally reached the floor for a vote. Evelyn sits quietly in the gallery, Marcus's folded flag in her lap. Jordan is beside her, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles are white. Around them, veterans and widows fill the rows, their faces a blend of hope and fear. The clerk begins the roll call. "Senator Adams?" "Aye." "Senator Blake?" "Nay." Each answer lands like a drumbeat. Evelyn can feel the weight of every syllable, each one pulling her closer to either triumph or heartbreak. She grips the flag tighter, whispering silently, "This is for you, Marcus." Outside the National Mall is a sea of people. Giant screens broadcast the roll call live. Crowds wave flags, sing hymns, and hold candles even in daylight. Signs rise above the masses. "Families first," "Honor the fallen," "Dignity now." Veterans lead chants, "No justice, no peace, dignity for families." The roar rattles the Capitol windows, a living reminder that this vote is not just procedural, it is personal. Back inside, the roll call continues. Some senators hesitate before speaking, their voices betraying the pressure they feel. Lobbyists and party leaders watch nervously from the sidelines. "Senator McCarthy?" A pause. The chamber holds its breath. "Aye." Gasps ripple through the gallery. Evelyn's eyes widen. McCarthy, once one of her loudest critics, has just broken ranks. He doesn't look at her, but she knows why he changed. The movement outside, the voices inside, he couldn't ignore them anymore. As the roll call nears its end, the tally is razor thin. The Senate Majority Leader leans back in his chair, sweat on his brow. Evelyn's chest tightens. Finally, the clerk reads the last name. Senator Wilson? The senator, an older man known for his unpredictability, clears his throat. Cameras zoom in. The nation waits. Aye. The chamber erupts. Some senators clap, others groan. In the gallery, widows burst into tears. Veterans raise their fists. Jordan shouts with joy. Evelyn's own cry is silent, her tears streaming as she presses Marcus's flag to her heart. The final tally, 61-39. The Dignity Act passes. Outside, the announcement flashes across the giant screens. The crowd explodes into cheers, hugging strangers, waving flags, some collapsing to their knees in relief. The chant changes instantly. Justice has come! Justice has come! News anchors declare it a landmark moment in American history. Headlines flood social media. Dignity Act passes Senate after historic movement. Videos of Evelyn's tear-streaked face in the gallery go viral within minutes. Moments later, Evelyn is invited to the steps of the Capitol. Microphones crowd in front of her, but she doesn't need notes. Her voice carries steady, full of the gravity of the moment. Today, America kept its promise. Today, every soldier who gave everything will know their family will not be forgotten. This is not just legislation. It is love written into law. The crowd cheers wildly. Behind her, senators file out, some looking proud, others defeated. But all of them know they have just witnessed history. That evening, Evelyn returns home. For once, the house feels lighter. She sets Marcus's flag back on the mantel, placing the news clipping of the vote beside it. Jordan sits with her at the kitchen table, grinning ear to ear. Auntie, we did it. Uncle Marcus did it. She nods, her smile faint but radiant. Yes, baby, he did. The phone rings nonstop. Reporters, supporters, officials, but Evelyn ignores it for now. She wants silence to savor this moment. She looks at Marcus's photo and whispers, "They listened, love. They finally listened." Across the nation, communities celebrate. Churches hold vigils, schools organize assemblies, military bases salute in unison. For the first time in decades, widows feel seen, children feel protected, soldiers feel their families will not be abandoned. Evelyn's movement has shifted from protest to permanence. The law is not just words on paper. It is a shield, forged by her grief, carried by her courage, and strengthened by a nation that finally rose to its promise. That night, Evelyn sits by the window, gazing at the Capitol dome glowing in the distance. She feels Marcus beside her in the quiet. For the first time since his passing, her heart carries more peace than pain. And she knows this truth, as sure as the stars above. Justice has been served. The morning sun spills over the White House lawn as a long table is set beneath the portico. Rows of chairs face it, already filling with veterans in uniform, widows clutching photos, and lawmakers who supported the cause. Reporters line the edges, cameras poised. At the center of it all rests the Dignity Act, its crisp pages waiting for the president's signature. For Evelyn, watching from the front row, it feels unreal. Just months ago, she had been shoved aside at a church door. Now the nation's most powerful office is preparing to honor her husband's sacrifice with the force of law. Jordan leans toward her, whispering, "Uncle Marcus would be here if he could." Evelyn squeezes his hand. "He is here. All of them are." The band strikes a solemn note as the president steps to the podium. He surveys the crowd, pausing on the veterans, then on Evelyn. His voice carries firm but warm. America is a land of promises, and too often those promises have gone unkept. Today we begin to correct that. The Dignity Act ensures that no family of a fallen soldier will ever be left behind again. It exists because citizens refuse to be silenced, because one widow transformed her grief into action, because Evelyn Carter stood up. All eyes turn to her. Evelyn bows her head briefly, her heart thundering. The president takes his seat at the table. Cameras flash in a frenzy. He picks up the pen, signs his name in bold strokes, and lifts the signed act high for all to see. The crowd erupts, applause, cheers, some sobbing openly. It is official. The Dignity Act is law. Evelyn's tears blur her vision as she rises to her feet. The widow who was once silenced now stands applauded by a nation. Reporters clamor for her reaction. She approaches the microphone slowly, Marcus's folded flag in her arms. Her voice steadies. This is not my victory alone. It belongs to every widow who sat alone at night wondering how to feed her children. It belongs to every child who felt forgotten when their parent never came home. And it belongs to every soldier who gave their life, believing this country would take care of their families. Today, America made that promise real. The crowd answers with thunderous applause. Even the president wipes his eyes discreetly. That night, news networks across the country replay the moment endlessly. The pen gliding across paper, the flag in Evelyn's arms, the roar of the crowd. Social media overflows with tributes. Hashtags trend worldwide. #Dignity Act, #Justice. For families, #Evelyn Carter. In small towns, church bells ring. On military bases, soldiers gather to watch the signing replay on screens. Families hug tighter, comforted by the knowledge that their sacrifices are recognized. Back at home, Evelyn finally allows herself a rare moment of quiet. She places the signed copy of the act, gifted to her by the president, on the mantel beside Marcus's photo. The two seem to belong together. A man's sacrifice and a nation's acknowledgement. Jordan sits at the kitchen table grinning. "Auntie, you changed the law of the land." Evelyn smiles faintly. "No, Jordan, we all did. Every voice, every march, every prayer. But even as celebration sweeps the nation, Evelyn knows the work isn't finished. The law is written, but laws are only as strong as those who enforce them. Already, lobbyists and bureaucrats whisper about delaying its funding, about weakening its reach. Evelyn steels herself. We won the battle, she thinks, but the fight for dignity will never truly end. She begins drafting her next speech, this time for the United Nations. If America could change, maybe the world could too. Later that night, Evelyn steps out onto her porch. The Capitol dome glows in the distance, the same dome under which her tears once fell in frustration. Now it glimmers like a promise. She whispers to the night sky, imagining Marcus listening. They heard us, love. They finally heard us. A gentle breeze stirs, and for the first time since his passing, she feels not just the weight of his absence, but the strength of his presence. Across the country, headlines declare, "From widow to national hero, Evelyn Carter's fight changes America." Children write essays about her in school. Veterans call her the voice we never had. The widow who was once silenced at her husband's funeral has become a symbol of justice. And though her journey is far from over, one truth is undeniable. Justice has been written into law. The silence inside the church is crushing. Every breath, every shuffle of shoes on the marble floor echoes like thunder. Margaret sits frozen in the front pew, her hands clenched together so tightly her knuckles are white. Just beyond her reach lies the casket of her son, draped in the flag he served under. Yet she cannot touch it, cannot approach it, not while Officer Crenshaw stands like a stone wall between her and the altar. His uniform is crisp, his jaw tight, his eyes filled with the cold arrogance of unchecked power. The crowd murmurs behind Margaret, some shifting uncomfortably, others pulling out their phones to record the disgrace unfolding in real time. A mother blocked from her own child's funeral. It is a sight no one expected, yet no one can ignore. Margaret's chest heaves. She remembers her son's voice the night before he deployed, when he whispered, "Mama, promise me you'll be strong if anything happens." She had promised, but strength feels impossible now, when even the right to mourn has been stripped from her. A ripple moves through the church. The heavy oak doors creak open once again, and sunlight streams inside. Heads turn. The murmurs swell into gasps. The President of the United States steps into the sanctuary. Secret Service agents fan out instantly, but the President raises a hand, signaling them to hold back. His face is solemn, his stride deliberate as he walks straight down the aisle. Every eye follows him, every phone now lifted high. The silence breaks into hushed whispers, disbelief mixing with hope. Officer Crenshaw stiffens. His hand twitches at his belt, as if his authority might shield him even now. But the President does not slow. He stops only when he stands directly before the officer, his presence radiating authority that needs no weapon, no badge. "Step aside," the President says, his voice low but commanding. Crenshaw's lips tighten. His pride wrestles with fear, with the sudden realization that the power he clings to is nothing compared to the weight of the nation standing behind this man. I said step aside. The silence stretches for a heartbeat too long. Then Crenshaw lowers his gaze, his body shifting reluctantly to the left. The path clears. Gasps and scattered applause ripple through the pews. Margaret rises on trembling legs. Her heart races as she takes her first step forward, the aisle stretching before her like a bridge she never thought she would cross. Tears stream down her cheeks, but they are no longer only of grief. They carry the release of finally being allowed to reach her son. The president extends his hand. For a moment, Margaret hesitates, overwhelmed by the surreal gravity of it all. Then she accepts it. His grip is steady, grounding, as he leads her those final steps toward the casket draped in stars and stripes. The cameras capture everything: the officer's shame, the mother's courage, the president's intervention. Within minutes, the footage will flood across social media, news outlets, and living rooms around the world. But in this moment, Margaret knows nothing of cameras. She knows only the weight of her son's sacrifice and the solemn honor of being able to stand before him. She lays her trembling hands on the flag. Her forehead bows against the polished wood. A sob breaks free from her chest, raw and unrestrained. The church holds its breath, the world outside forgotten. The president rests a hand on her shoulder. "Your son was a hero," he says softly, just for her to hear. "And today, so are you." Margaret closes her eyes. For the first time in days, she feels not just grief but dignity. Justice has not erased her pain, but it has given her back her voice. And as the mournful notes of Amazing Grace rise from the choir, the truth settles over every soul in the sanctuary. No wall of hatred can stand forever. Today, love and justice have walked through the door together. The church doors open again, this time not for an arrival but for an exodus. Hundreds of mourners spill onto the steps, their voices buzzing, their phones already in hand. The video of the president confronting Officer Crenshaw spreads faster than wildfire. Shared, reposted, dissected. By the time Margaret steps into the sunlight, the clip has already gone viral. Reporters rush forward, microphones extended like weapons. "Mrs. Carter, how do you feel after what happened inside? Do you believe the officer should be prosecuted? What do you think your son would say if he saw this today?" Margaret shields her face with her hand, overwhelmed by the flashing bulbs. But before she can speak, the president emerges behind her. The crowd parts instantly, silence rippling outward like a wave. He places a steadying hand on her shoulder and addresses the cameras himself. "Today we witnessed something shameful," the president declares, his voice echoing across the courtyard. "A grieving mother, a widow of a soldier, was denied the most basic dignity. That is not who we are as a nation. That is not who we will be." The crowd erupts in applause. Margaret glances at him, gratitude swelling in her chest. For the first time in days, she feels less alone. Across the country, televisions replay the confrontation. Some networks show it with disbelief, others with fury. But the images are impossible to ignore. The officer blocking a mother, the president ordering him aside, the widow finally laying her hand on her son's casket. Talk shows, podcasts, and social media explode. Hashtags trend, #let her mourn, #justice for Margaret, #no mother denied. Memes and posts flood every platform, turning what happened in that church into a national reckoning. In cities from Atlanta to Los Angeles, candlelight vigils are held in honor of Margaret's son, and in solidarity with every family who has faced similar injustice. Veterans march in uniform, saluting Margaret in photos taped to signs. College students walk out of classrooms, demanding accountability for systemic racism. Even late-night comedians weigh in. "Imagine thinking you could stop a mother from attending her son's funeral," one quips. That cop's career lasted shorter than a TikTok video. The audience roars with laughter, but beneath the humor lies raw truth. At home, Margaret watches the coverage with Jordan beside her. The boy scrolls through his phone, wide-eyed. "Auntie, you're everywhere. Look, Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok. They're calling you a hero." Margaret shakes her head. "I'm not a hero. I'm just a mother." But deep down, she knows something has shifted. She has become more than just a grieving widow. She has become a symbol. And symbols, once born, cannot easily be silenced. Meanwhile, Officer Crenshaw faces his own reckoning. By evening, the police department issues a statement placing him on administrative leave. Civil rights lawyers announce lawsuits. Protesters gather outside his precinct, chanting his name in anger. Inside his small apartment, Crenshaw stares at the glowing TV screen, replaying the moment again and again. The president's command, his own faltering obedience. His phone buzzes with calls he doesn't answer. The authority he clung to is slipping through his fingers, and for the first time, he tastes the bitterness of accountability. The next morning, the president calls Margaret personally. His voice is calm but resolute. "Mrs. Carter, your strength has moved this nation. I want you to join me at the White House this week. Together, we will announce new measures to protect the rights of grieving families. What happened to you must never happen again." Margaret's breath catches. The White House. Her voice trembles as she replies, "Thank you, Mr. President, for everything." As she hangs up, Jordan beams. "Auntie, you're going to the White House. Uncle Marcus would be so proud." Margaret smiles faintly, tears in her eyes. "I just wish he were here to see it." That evening, the church bells toll softly as Margaret returns to the sanctuary, now empty. She kneels beside the casket, the silence wrapping around her like a shroud. "I hope you're watching, Marcus," she whispers, "because they tried to silence me, but they failed. And now the whole country is listening." She rests her hand on the flag one last time, her heart steadier than before. Outside, the nation roils with anger and hope, but inside her chest, a quiet determination begins to grow. Her fight isn't over. In many ways, it has only just begun. The White House looms like a fortress of history as Margaret approaches its gates. Secret Service agents wave her car through, their movements precise, almost mechanical. Yet for Margaret, every moment feels dreamlike. She clutches the folded flag of her son tightly in her lap, the fabric worn soft from her hand's constant touch. Jordan sits beside her, eyes wide. "We're really here," he whispers, staring at the towering facade. "Auntie, this is history." Margaret forces a small smile. History has a way of finding those who never asked for it. The car stops at the south portico. The president himself waits on the steps, flanked by aides and advisors. He greets her with a warm handshake, his tone gentle. "Mrs. Carter, thank you for coming. The nation needs to hear your voice." Her knees nearly buckle under the weight of it, but she steadies herself. She promised Marcus she would be strong, and strength is what she will show. Inside the East Room, the atmosphere is electric. Rows of journalists fill the chairs, cameras ready, pens poised. Military families, civil rights leaders, and lawmakers crowd the edges, waiting. The American flag stands tall behind a podium that bears the seal of the president. Margaret takes her seat in the front row, the folded flag still in her arms. As the president steps up to the podium, the room falls silent. His voice booms with conviction. "America witnessed an injustice last week that shook our conscience. A grieving mother was denied the right to mourn her son. That act of cruelty does not represent who we are, nor who we aspire to be. Today we make a promise. Never again will a family face such indignity." He gestures toward Margaret, because one woman stood tall, even when her heart was breaking. "Mrs. Carter, would you join me here?" The room erupts in applause as Margaret rises. Every step feels heavy, yet purposeful, as she ascends to the podium. Flashbulbs explode, capturing her face etched with sorrow and determination. She sets the folded flag on the podium, her hand resting atop it, grounding herself. Her voice quivers at first, but steadies as she speaks. "My son gave everything for this country, and when I tried to honor him, I was silenced. But what happened in that church wasn't just about me. It was about every mother, every father, every family who has ever been told their grief doesn't matter." The crowd leans in, riveted. Margaret lifts her chin, her voice rising. No badge, no uniform, no title should ever stand between a family and their right to mourn. We must be a nation that honors sacrifice, not one that compounds pain. Today, I stand not just for my son, but for every soldier whose family deserves dignity. Tears stream down the faces of mothers in the audience. Veterans rise to their feet, saluting silently. The applause swells until the chandeliers tremble. The president returns to her side, his expression solemn. "Thank you, Mrs. Carter. You remind us of what true courage looks like." He turns back to the cameras. "In honor of this family's sacrifice, I am announcing new federal protections to ensure no family is ever denied access to a funeral, memorial, or burial. This will be law, and it begins now." The room explodes. Journalists shouting questions, cameras flashing non-stop, families embracing one another. Margaret steps back, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She never sought power, never sought attention. Yet here she is, helping to reshape the very laws of the nation. Later, in a quiet room off the East Wing, Margaret finally breathes. Jordan hugs her tightly. "You did it, Auntie. You made them listen." Margaret smiles faintly, brushing his cheek. "No, Jordan. We made them listen. Your uncle gave his life, and we carried his voice here today." She glances at the window, where the White House lawn stretches into the horizon. Crowds still gather beyond the gates, chanting her name, waving flags, holding candles. The nation has embraced her grief, turned it into a rallying cry. That night, every network replays her speech. Commentators call it the turning point, the widow's declaration, a new chapter in civil rights. Her words trend online, quoted in classrooms, churches, and community centers. For Margaret, though, the most important moment is when she kneels by her bed, flag still in hand, and whispers to Marcus, "They tried to silence me, love, but your voice carried through me, and now it echoes across this nation." The tears come freely, but this time they carry both grief and hope. Margaret Carter, once denied the right to stand at her son's casket, now stands at the heart of a movement, and she is just getting started. The morning after Margaret's speech, America wakes up different. News anchors speak with urgency, their voices tinged with awe. Screens flash with her image, her words scrolling in bold captions. No badge, no uniform, no title should ever stand between a family and their right to mourn. Across the nation, people replay the moment on their phones, their tablets, their TVs. Soldiers in barracks watch in silence, some saluting instinctively as her face fills the screen. Mothers hold their children tighter. Strangers on buses and subways wipe tears from their cheeks, united by a grief that feels both personal and collective. In Atlanta, a group of veterans march through the streets, their boots pounding in unison. They carry posters with Margaret's face, the word justice emblazoned across the top. In Chicago, a candlelight vigil lights up the lakeshore. Hundreds gathered to honor fallen soldiers and their families. In Los Angeles, high school students stage a walkout, flooding their football field with chants of, "Let families mourn." The movement grows like wildfire. It is no longer just about Margaret or her son. It is about every family ever denied dignity, every person silenced by prejudice. The hashtags from last week now surge again. #Let her mourn, #justice for families, #no mother denied. Margaret watches the coverage from her small living room, Jordan curled up beside her. His phone vibrates non-stop with notifications, clips, memes, speeches inspired by her own. "Auntie," he says, wide-eyed. "They're organizing rallies in every major city this weekend. Look, New York, Houston, Seattle, they all have your picture on the flyers." Margaret shakes her head slowly. "This isn't about me, Jordan. This is bigger than any one person." But Jordan grins. "It started because of you, because you refused to stay silent." Her heart swells. She thinks of Marcus, of the promise she made at his graveside, to be strong, to honor his sacrifice. She never imagined it would look like this. By midweek, lawmakers begin responding. Some pledge to support the president's proposed protections for grieving families. Others resist, dismissing it as political theater. But the tide is turning. The public's outrage is too loud, too persistent to ignore. Civil rights leaders call Margaret directly, inviting her to rallies, offering her platforms. Churches ask her to speak, universities want her story told. She politely declines most invitations, her grief is still raw, but she understands something now. Her voice carries weight. Late one night, she sits at the kitchen table, pen hovering over a blank sheet of paper. Jordan watches from the doorway. "What are you writing?" he asks. Margaret exhales. "A letter. To Congress. To every lawmaker who has the power to change this. They need to hear from me directly." Her pen scratches across the page, each word poured from the well of her sorrow and determination. By the time she finishes, the letter reads less like a plea and more like a declaration. Families deserve dignity. Soldiers deserve honor. America must be better. Meanwhile, Officer Crenshaw faces mounting consequences. The department announces his termination, citing conduct unbecoming of an officer. Protesters gather outside his home, chanting into the night. His face, once unknown, has become the symbol of everything the movement stands against. Margaret doesn't gloat. She feels no satisfaction in his downfall. For her, justice isn't about vengeance. It's about ensuring no one else suffers the way she has. The weekend arrives, and with it, the rallies. Cities swell with people holding candles, banners, and signs. In Washington, D.C., tens of thousands gather on the National Mall. The crowd stretches from the Lincoln Memorial to the steps of the Capitol. Margaret stands on a makeshift stage, the flag of her son folded neatly in her hands. The president has joined the crowd, along with senators, activists, and military families. The air hums with anticipation. She raises the flag high above her head, her voice carrying over the sea of faces. This is not just my story, this is our story. And together, we are writing a new chapter for this nation. One where no mother is silenced, no father is denied, no family is forgotten. The roar of the crowd shakes the very ground beneath her feet. From that moment on, there is no turning back. Margaret has become the reluctant face of a movement too powerful to contain. The nation is awake, and justice is no longer a whisper. It is a demand. The images from the National Mall ripple through the halls of power like thunder. Lawmakers watch the footage of Margaret holding her son's folded flag before a sea of thousands. Some shake their heads, others whisper among themselves, but none can deny the force of what they've seen. By Monday morning, Capitol Hill is buzzing. News crews line the steps of Congress, anchors narrating live as senators and representatives hurry into meetings. Inside, debate rages. Families deserve protection, one senator insists, slamming his fist on the table. This isn't politics. This is basic humanity. But across the aisle, another shakes his head. We can't legislate every emotional situation. This is government overreach. The president is pandering. The arguments grow louder, but outside those walls, the people's voices are louder still. Protesters march in circles around the Capitol, chanting Margaret's words. No badge, no uniform, no title should ever stand between a family and their right to mourn. Margaret herself never sought to become part of Washington's machinery, but the invitations pour in anyway. Civil rights organizations want her at strategy sessions, senators request private meetings, activists plead for her leadership. She feels pulled in every direction. One afternoon, she sits in her small living room with Jordan, exhaustion clear in her eyes. "I'm not a politician," she says quietly. "I'm just a mother who buried her son." Jordan looks at her, his young face wise beyond his years. "Auntie, that's exactly why they need you, because you're not like them. You're real." His words strike her heart like a bell. Marcus would have said the same thing, always pushing her to see her own strength. She sighs, then nods. "All right, if they want my voice in those halls, they'll hear it." 2 days later, Margaret walks through the marble corridors of Congress. The echo of her footsteps mixes with the hum of journalists and staffers darting between offices. She clutches Marcus's flag as though it were armor. She enters a hearing room, packed with lawmakers, cameras, and military families. The chairman welcomes her with a somber nod. "Mrs. Carter, thank you for being here. Please share your story." The microphones crackle as she begins. Her voice trembles at first, but soon steadies, growing stronger with each word. "My son gave his life for this country. When I tried to mourn him, I was told I had no right. That humiliation will stay with me forever. But this is not just about me. This is about every family who has ever been denied dignity. This is about who we are as a nation." She raises the flag slightly. "If we can honor soldiers on the battlefield, we must honor them in death. Their families deserve that much." The room falls silent. Some lawmakers blink back tears. Others scribble notes furiously. Even the cameras seem to lean closer, capturing every word. Outside the chamber, the press swarms her. "Mrs. Carter, do you believe Congress will pass the law? Do you trust the political system to deliver justice?" Margaret pauses, choosing her words carefully. "I believe the American people have already spoken. Now it's time for Congress to listen." Her calm conviction makes headlines within the hour. Behind closed doors, pressure mounts. Constituents flood congressional offices with calls and emails. Veterans groups release statements demanding action. Faith leaders preach sermons invoking Margaret's name. Even corporations, wary of public backlash, release statements of support for the bill. Some lawmakers dig in their heels, but cracks begin to show. One by one, skeptics soften their tone, shifting from opposition to consideration. The tide is turning. That night, Margaret returns home, utterly drained. She sits on the couch, staring at the folded flag on her lap. Jordan sets a steaming cup of tea beside her. "You did good today," he says softly. Margaret exhales, her shoulders heavy. "I don't know, Jordan. These halls are full of power and politics. I'm just one voice. But Jordan shakes his head. You're not just one voice. You're the voice they can't ignore. Later, as she prepares for bed, Margaret kneels by her window. The city lights glow in the distance, the Capitol dome illuminated against the night sky. She whispers a prayer, not for herself, but for the lawmakers who will soon vote. Marcus, guide them. Guide me. Let them do what's right. The battle is far from over. But for the first time, Margaret feels the weight of possibility pressing in around her. Change no longer seems like a dream. It feels within reach. The day of the congressional vote dawns gray and heavy, as if the skies themselves sense the weight of what is to come. Outside the Capitol, thousands gather. Veterans in uniform, mothers holding pictures of their fallen children, students waving signs. Each voice adds to the collective roar echoing through the National Mall. Chants rise into the cold air. Let families mourn, and justice. Now! The sound reverberates off the marble walls of government, impossible to ignore. Inside, security is tight. Lawmakers stream into the chamber, some grim-faced, others defiant. Journalists fill the press gallery, pens ready, cameras poised. The nation is watching. Margaret sits in the front row of the gallery, Marcus's folded flag resting gently on her lap. Jordan squeezes her hand. "This is it," he whispers. She nods, though her heart pounds so loudly it feels like the only sound in the room. The speaker gavels the chamber to order. Today we vote on this Family's Dignity Act, legislation ensuring that no family of a fallen soldier is denied access to funerals, memorials, or burial services. Debate is concluded. We will proceed to the roll call. The clerk begins reading names. Each yay or nay echoes like a drumbeat. Margaret leans forward, every muscle tense. On the floor, lawmakers glance nervously at the gallery, aware of the eyes boring into them. Outside, the crowd swells. Protesters hold candles despite the daylight, their flames flickering like stars against the gray sky. Churches across the country ring their bells at the same hour, a national chorus demanding justice. In Detroit, a church choir gathers on the steps, singing hymns that drift into the cold wind. In Dallas, veterans kneel in silence at a memorial wall. In Los Angeles, students flood the streets, chanting Margaret's words. America waits, breath held. Back in the chamber, the roll call continues. The count is close, far closer than Margaret hoped. Some representatives who had promised their support falter, bowing under political pressure. Others, unexpectedly, stand firm, moved by the power of the people's voice. Margaret clutches the flag tighter. Her mind drifts briefly to Marcus, to the way he used to tell her, "Change is slow, but it always comes." She whispers under her breath, "Stay with me, love." At last, the clerk announces the tally. The Family's Dignity Act has passed the House. The chamber erupts, cheers from one side, shouts from the other. Margaret closes her eyes, tears spilling freely. Jordan hugs her tightly. "You did it, Auntie, we did it." But the battle isn't finished. The bill must now go to the Senate, where the fight will be fiercer. Already, pundits speculate on razor-thin margins, on senators who might sway either way. The pressure mounts. That night, Washington is alive with protest and celebration. Crowds flood Lafayette Square, chanting Margaret's name, holding candles that glow like fireflies in the darkness. Reporters shove microphones toward her as she exits the Capitol, their questions overlapping. "Mrs. Carter, do you think the Senate will pass the bill? What do you say to those who still oppose it? Are you prepared to testify again?" Margaret lifts her chin, her voice steady despite the storm around her. "This fight is not about politics, it's about dignity, and we will not stop until this law is real." Her words replay on every major network, broadcast across the nation. Commentators call her the moral compass of Congress. To the people, she is simply the mother who refused to be silenced. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, senators feel the pressure. Their offices overflow with letters, calls, and petitions. Veterans groups vow to remember their votes at the ballot box. Some senators bristle at the scrutiny, but others begin to waver, realizing resistance could mean political ruin. The Senate vote is scheduled for 1 week later. The countdown begins. At home, Margaret sits at her kitchen table once again, flag folded neatly in front of her. Jordan paces the room, anxious energy spilling out of him. "What if they don't pass it?" he asks. "What if it all falls apart now?" Margaret reaches across the table, taking his hand. "Then we keep fighting. Justice isn't won in a single day. It's won in every step we take, every voice that rises, every heart that refuses to give up. Her words calm him, but inside she feels the same fear. She knows the Senate will be the hardest battle yet. She lifts her eyes toward the window. The Capitol dome gleams in the distance, illuminated against the night sky. For a moment it almost feels like Marcus is watching from somewhere above, his presence steady and reassuring. Margaret whispers, "We're almost there." The morning of the Senate vote arrives with a tension that hangs heavy in the air. News networks cover the event wall to wall, their graphics flashing phrases like "historic legislation" and "Family's Dignity Act," "final vote." Across the nation, people gather in living rooms, churches, and town squares to watch. Schools set up projectors in gyms. Businesses pause their workday to stream the proceedings. The country is holding its breath. Outside the Capitol, the crowd is even larger than before. Veterans stand shoulder to shoulder with young students, clergy with activists, parents with children. They wave signs and flags, their chants rising like thunder. "Pass the bill! Pass the bill!" Margaret stands near the steps, surrounded by reporters and supporters. The folded flag rests in her arms, a constant reminder of why she is here. Jordan lingers by her side, his eyes wide as he takes in the sea of faces. Inside the chamber, the roll call begins. Each senator's name echoes like a hammer against stone. Yay! Nay! Yay! The tally shifts back and forth, a razor-thin line between victory and defeat. Commentators whisper urgently into their microphones, explaining each swing vote, each unexpected decision. Margaret can't see the chamber from outside, but she feels the weight of every word. She closes her eyes, whispering a prayer. Around her, the crowd falls into an uneasy hush, listening as updates trickle out. In living rooms across America, families lean forward. In Alabama, a group of veterans bow their heads in silence. In New York, a classroom full of children watches with wide eyes. In California, a mother wipes tears from her cheeks, clutching a photo of her son lost in combat. The vote is not just about legislation anymore. It is about them, their dignity, their humanity. At last, the final name is called. The clerk reads the tally. By a vote of 52 to 48, the Family's Dignity Act has passed the Senate. The chamber erupts in noise, cheers, boos, shouts, and applause. Outside, the news flashes on giant screens set up for the crowd. For a split second, silence hangs in the air as people process the words. Then, the crowd explodes. Cheers shake the ground. Tears stream down faces. Strangers hug each other in the streets. Veterans salute. Children clap their hands. The chant becomes deafening. Justice! 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 Margaret feels her knees weaken. Jordan catches her, steadying her as tears blur her vision. "We did it, Auntie," he whispers, his own voice breaking. Margaret holds the flag tighter. "No, Jordan. America did it." 3 days later, the president signs the bill into law in a public ceremony on the White House lawn. Cameras flash, reporters jostle for position, and lawmakers crowd the stage. But all eyes are on Margaret as she is invited to stand beside the president. The president lifts the signed document for the world to see. "With this law, we affirm what should have always been true, that the families of our fallen heroes deserve dignity, respect, and access to their loved ones' final honors." He turns to Margaret, his voice softening. "Mrs. Carter, this moment would not have happened without your courage." Applause erupts. Margaret steps forward, the flag clutched tightly in her hands. She speaks into the microphone, her voice steady and clear. "This law is not about me. It is about every family who has ever stood in silence, denied their right to grieve. Today we tell them, you are not invisible. You are not voiceless. You are not alone." The crowd roars. That night, Margaret returns home. She places the flag gently on her mantle, lit by a single lamp. For the first time in months, her heart feels lighter. She sits with Jordan on the porch, the cool night air carrying the faint sound of distant church bells. "You think Marcus would be proud?" Jordan asks. Margaret smiles through her tears. "I don't just think, I know." Above them, the stars shine brilliantly, as if the heavens themselves are celebrating. For Margaret, justice is not just a word anymore. It is real, written into law, carried on the voices of millions, sealed by her son's memory. And as the night deepens, she whispers one final promise to the wind. Justice has been served.